Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Social Confoes, episode 68. Today we're going to be just following up a bit more on last week's episodes because there are so much more we wanted to cover. But Chandruk, how are you doing today?
I'm hella tired, man. You can see it on my face. My smile might like put a facade on it, but I don't think it's different from you. We'll talk about that in a bit. But first off, how was the experience? How was the training in Coroni and Ikeri?
Right. It was actually quite interesting. I gotta say, enjoyed it. Not used to doing like consecutive long hours. So basically, I planned for one session, but then having to take over like okay, yeah, it really puts a toll on you when you're continuously busy like 2.5 hours, just to keep energy from yourself, but also from the participating side. But in general, it went pretty well. We were pleasantly surprised on the participation from Corona, especially. Um, we had,
Nice, nice.
yeah, even the
So what
organization had
what?
relatively conservative expectations, but I gotta say, Corona surprised.
Okay. So what was the most fun part? What's the highlight you want to share?
Um, from the, I guess the fun part, or should I'll share the fun part second, but the interesting part was being able to just step in there and present a training that you were originally supposed to do one day planned before and actually being able to make it my own. That was quite interesting. I think it's the time we've spent together, the way of thinking. So from most of the part, I was, already knew what it was about. Just seeing the slide, I knew what you wanted to convey, and of course, incorporating my own experiences. So that was very interesting to see.
So I don't have to do it anymore. That's fun. Next time I'll just
Was
say
that
like
your
you can
secret
ask
plan?
Diego. No, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. I really was down. I wasn't allowed to join in. Yeah, we're streaming live on Twitch as well. So yeah, we're finally back on Twitch this time on my channel because Diego's channel is for gaming purposes now. And Gregory wants to know what was surprising about Corona. Was it the turnout or the engagement?
Both,
What
actually,
made it
both.
special?
That like we had a full room. Like I'm not sure if you're familiar with the space, the computer space they have there. I think it's called the hub. So it was filled.
Yeah.
There are some last
Oh,
minute
nice.
entrants too, and yeah, the engagement was pretty up there as well. They
Okay.
were like I guess they were a bit reserved in the beginning, but after 1 2 sessions, you got people with some icebreakers, got them moving. Then they started to engage, open up more. But I guess that's with any type of training. People need to feel at ease first.
Yeah, they need icebreakers in general. They do need icebreakers. I'm glad to hear that that was a lot of fun. I'm a little bit not necessarily upset, but I wanted to be part of it as well. But
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I think
yeah.
the evenings after the trainings were are the parts where you would have enjoyed as well.
Okay, okay.
Having
Yeah, I
like,
think so. I
yeah,
need to get out of the city a little bit more as well. And that
just
brings us
just
back to
chilling, having some dinner, and some very interesting conversations, to say the least.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean the party that was there. I know the people, and yeah, we had fun conversations in the past. Um, But the main issue is that we're both tired today, so we should definitely talk about that a little bit. For me, I've I think declared on the show before that I'm working on a process to go to bed before midnight.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happens is the NBA playoffs. So whenever there's an NBA game on, that kind of messes up my schedule because I want to watch the playoff game. In the beginning, like in the earlier rounds, I was okay with just watching um, the condensed replay of the game like the next day. But as we get into like the conference finals and the finals, I do want to watch the actual game. So
Is
that's
it like
kind of
the
like
hype, the from that's keeping you like engaged, keeping that interest, like seeing it live? Because I know you've been a
I
huge
just like
NBA
sports.
fan for years, yeah,
Yeah,
and sports
yeah,
in
I just
general.
like sports. So for me, it's difficult. And I like football games or like during the day, like the Champions League finals during the day. That's not such a big issue. But the NBA games, especially the West Coast games, they tend to start around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. local time, and they end around 1 o'clock. And I think the main switch is being able to turn on the television and go straight to bed. If you have that discipline, I think it doesn't matter. But if you're like me and you want to watch the latest Sidemen episode just because it got over 7.5 million views within 24 hours, um, you end up somewhere in the middle of the night. So I think, and yeah, I can say it's for educational purposes, but I think social media content is getting really, really good. Like it's interesting to see how certain concepts kind of it's it's like game shows, but in a new form. It's like
Okay.
um, it's really entertaining, and especially if you're like just like you used to be committed to like a certain actor in the past, you get connected to certain YouTubers now, and it's very time consuming. So I'm again at this point that I have to cut down consumption time over creation time.
So when you say social media is getting really good now, on what metric are you comparing it? Like say 5 years ago, if you have an example, this crossover with traditional actors and YouTubers, for example, is that one of them? But also the production
So
on.
all levels, the productions, the acting. Like I mean, like social media content, like 10 years ago was very shabby acting. Like now you have actors who are like, wow, you're like, wait, you should actually have a career in entertainment, a proper career in entertainment. But they already have a proper career in entertainment because they kind of earn more and have more jobs and more gigs than actual people who come in from the regular entertainment side. Another example on production side, it's interesting to see how Mr. Beast, for instance, moved from like daily videos, which weren't always as great as they were, to like just posting once a month and just going all out on these productions.
Yeah,
And
I've seen the warehouse tour he got. Like I don't know how many acres that is, but they built complete sets within those warehouse. And I think he even said it for some of the projects. It's not even about the profit anymore. It's just pumping it to the max to have like a high production quality. Uh,
it's insane. And the crossovers, like I connected with Zach King on LinkedIn, where he I think he also posts those videos on YouTube or somewhere else, but he also posts the videos on LinkedIn. And my LinkedIn feed is less cloudy. It's less like all over the place compared to other socials. So I see his content more often on LinkedIn. And he recently made a video with David Blaine. And if you see the production behind that video,
Speaking
it's
of
insane.
David Blaine has been making some rounds recently with his magic academy or something.
Yeah. So it's kind of two worlds coming together. David Blaine is kind of the guy who came from the traditional side but said like, I want to do new stuff. And not necessarily new stuff, but like things that have been done like 30 years ago and nobody really committed to it after that. And him coming together with Zach King, who's kind of like the best online magician in the world, or the
Mm.
actual best, according to many, the best magician in the world. It's insane. I'm actually, yeah, I don't want to get copyright strike, but I actually almost want to show the production behind the scenes to give an idea like how high that quality of production is. And these are like concepts that, like, budget wise, and this is also that we're kind of in social media space are getting confronted with. Social media budgets used to be like, oh yeah, we'll just take a photo with our phone and we'll post that online, to now having like complete strategies for TikTok, like the
Yeah.
discussion on artists not being allowed to publish their single if it hasn't gone viral on TikTok.
Oh,
Like
has that really
these,
become a thing?
yeah,
Like
that's the thing
testing
now.
the MVP, the virality of like if it really sticks to people.
Yeah, so you want to go viral on TikTok first, and then actually release the song officially.
Interesting. So how would that work? Like having a like 15-30 second demo. Uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure how, like, we're gonna figure it out because I also made a commitment to, for next, tomorrow is June 1st, so I'm making the commitment again. Most people haven't realized that I've been, aside from going live on Tuesday and Thursday, I've been really quiet on social media, and um, I've decided to pick it up again. I'm a bit concerned with picking it up because the amount of traction it gets when I am consistent, it's scary. I don't always feel like I have the infrastructure ready to respond, because when you're active, and that's one thing I think that's really undervalued from big creators, is like they get approached so often. Their
mhm.
DMs are like filled with people wanting to work together and do stuff together, and they have to make split decisions on, should I do this? Should I do that? How am I going to do with that? And that's one of the things that, like, even from me being more of an entrepreneur, but having to deal with the creative side, um, I know I'm spread too thin, but I'm still at awe, like how big creators who get like thousands of people engaging on their content, tens of thousands, millions of people engaging on their content, like, and still responding personally to some of that stuff instead of
The-
having bots that send a standard message out. I think that's one of the most underrated things there is.
but is it that they do it on all platforms? I think most of them like have a focus platform, right? Or
They have their focus platform.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, some of the platforms are just once a month they post something. So it's something that's one of the things we didn't discuss that in the training. I think the online home and the online traffic drivers and the optimizers. So
No.
basically, one of the things that I think is most important when you do online marketing is having a single online home, like a single place that, that space is where I convert. That space is where I can give my attention. So that could be either a Facebook page, it could be a Facebook group, it could be a WhatsApp group, it could be a WhatsApp broadcast, it
It's
could be an
basically where
email
people
list,
can
it
have
could be
a
your
high chance
website.
that you're gonna get a
Yeah,
response, right?
now it's even the Discord channel. It's kind of like the online home is the main place where you actually interact with people and where you make your decisions on conversion or not.
Yeah, and everything is
And
just
then you
a
have the
funnel.
traffic drivers. Yeah, and then you have the traffic drivers that kind of bring in all the traffic to that specific online home. And picking that online home can be very daunting. Like, for people who have like their first platform where they kind of go viral and get a million followers, it feels easier, but they have to shift as well as their audience changes a bit. But it's difficult.
So now that you mentioned that having a social media, let's say home headquarters, would you say website is still king or is websites overrated right now?
I think it's properly rated. I think people underestimate the utilities that a website has. Like with your website, you can do everything. Like Facebook and TikTok give you a certain structure. You have to deal within that structure. And if you're okay with dealing within that structure and you're big enough to have like an email address or a number that people can reach out to, and everybody reaches out because if they want to contact you, they reach out to that number. I don't think there's an issue. So you have to really have narrowed it down to how you want to use it. But for a website, you have so many other options, so many. It's easier to give a full backstory on a website than it is on a Facebook page or on a TikTok page. It's kind of like TikTok. You could see TikTok like the trailers, the teasers to the actual
Yeah, yeah,
film.
yeah.
And
Okay.
what the weird switch is that we're moving from TikTok being teasers of an actual film to having actual micro content being like, okay, you have to do this in 8 seconds now. You have to do this in 15 seconds now. You have to get your point across in the least amount of time. And this is so hard for companies that want to do 15-minute infomercials because they just can't make the switch from the 15-minute infomercial to the 20-second video. And companies that can translate it, they win instantly because they are able to grab the attention and get the best bits out and make the best bits go viral. Whereas companies that are not able to have to rely on the quality of that 15-minute infomercial. And only if that's really good, people will share it at a similar rate as the viral one. But still, a lot of people won't even watch it fully. So I think that's different. That's definitely something that's
So
hard.
based on that properly rating for website now, would you consider like a starting business or a young creator? Um, where would he, if you only had to, was able to choose one platform, website, TikTok, Facebook, um, or let's make it easier, a website or a social media platform. If you had to shift a priority, where would you lean towards more at starting out?
Starting like it's completely depends on where your audience is. Like if you're stuck on like I want to get people to my Discord,
Yeah, no,
and
so
you're like
that's why I distinguished website and
in a non
a social
in a
media platform.
non-gaming community, in a non-gaming community, it won't work. If you want to go to websites, I think for sure now, yeah, the reason I want a website is I want my long-form content like my blogs on my website, especially the ones that are not Hive-centric. But there's an issue with my website, so I'm postponing actually posting, which is kind of a shame because I feel like I want to do it there, but I want to do the Dutch content there, whereas the English content I can just post on Hive. So these are kind of decisions that you
Yeah,
end up
and I
making,
think website
especially
is
if you
also
want
a
to go
higher
by
barrier of entry, right? A social platform is the framework is there,
it's
so
easier.
starting
It's
there
easier.
is easier. Yeah,
Facebook for the Lucky D show, we decided to make a Facebook group. That's perfectly fine. It's much easier. We don't need a page. We need a Facebook group where we can interact, where people get the first group or share the first group. So that's interesting as well because with that community they share. It's something we should consider as well. Like where on what platform would the people that watch social convos most likely interact as part of a tribe or a group feel?
yeah, that's a fair point. I think either it would have, based on past engagement, it's either LinkedIn or Facebook, I think. But that's just you know, taking a shot at past patterns. Okay, we got one quick question here. How hard is it to grow YouTube in Suriname?
Depends. Depends totally on what you wanna, what your target audience is, how niche is it, are other people doing it, how good is your content, um,
Yeah,
how much is your content needed. I think this steps into to the ikigai part where we say like and the problems, fears, and yeah, the passions, problems, and fears part, where you could like really love what you do, but then have a YouTube channel where you don't get any engagement because there's nobody actually interested in what you love doing. So there's always the question like, do you tap into other people's problems and other people's fear? Do you tap into something that the world needs, or are you just doing some self-fulfilling thing that's important to you and not necessarily for others? I think that's very a hard question, but I think that's the main question that you have to ask yourself.
Yeah, and
And
I
if you're
don't
doing
think
something that other people are interested in, which unfortunately often is comedy or sexually explicit content or uh, highly debatable and yeah,
controversies. People love
that
drama.
gets a lot of views.
Controversies.
But sorry,
Controversies, drama, or like
yeah, controversy, yeah, controversial topics. Like we could have like a whole session on clickbaiting titles on YouTube. Like, how do you change your YouTube title and your YouTube thumbnail to get more views? It
yeah.
it completely works. It
Well,
completely works.
there,
It's
there
it's not
are
even a discussion
YouTubers that
anymore.
actually optimize for the algorithm. Like they will, within the first 5 minutes that the video has been published, either change the thumbnail if the metrics don't immediately hit. But that's on a different scale. And I think on a smaller scale, if you're saying how hard is it to grow YouTube and Suriname, I don't think uh, if you're gonna geo fence it or geo target it like that, then you need to really look at what's interesting to people in Suriname that are in YouTube. But if you want to grow a YouTube channel in general, go topic wise and focus on that, and then experiment with the algorithm. But you'll have to constantly be consistent in creating.
Have we had Serge on social confoes?
Have you had
I think we
Serge?
should have Serge Dion on social confoes to talk about this. He actually has experimented with this now, focusing on an
No,
English
yeah,
audience,
we didn't have
and we should
Serge. No.
definitely, because he might have some interesting takes on this. It's definitely possible. Like it really depends again on what are you doing. Like Mr. Beast is, I think, the best example. Mr. Beast made a video while he was a teenager in high school. Um, he was a teenager and made a video to his future self saying like, if I haven't hit 1 million subscribers by then, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And he has completely focused on the algorithm, on how the monetary system works, and everything like that. Yeah, that's an issue still, Sherry. Thank you for joining in as
But I
well.
disagree if it
But
is common.
most creators in Suriname have already figured out this glitch and are actually earning money. While some people are earning cents, a couple of cents every day, other people
Yeah,
in Suriname
I
are
think that
actually,
there's a misconception on making money online that we should address at some point. Like we have in previous episodes, but an episode focused on that, addressing the misconception of earning by the view, etc. The numbers are ridiculously low.
well, it depends. It depends. I had in the past month, I've had one video. If I go live, I don't. If I go live on YouTube, I don't earn quite as much, but I can actually do memberships now. So I could ask people to pay a monthly fee, so they get like a special icon behind their name when they comment in the live chat and those kind of things. And I haven't looked at those things extensively yet. But if I upload a video which is interesting to the Sudanese diaspora, then it does get quite some revenue compared to videos that are mainly watched by locals. So I think that's one of the interesting things that you have to really decide who's your target audience. If you want to get rich, if you want to make $1 million by creating YouTube content for a Sudanese audience living in Suriname,
That's not gonna
that's
happen.
a 10. Well, it is. It's a 10-year process. Maybe you'll be able to do it in 10 years. Whereas if you focus on the Dutch or the American audience, you could reach that within two
Three,
years.
2 to 3 years.
So consistency, like how consistent are you with uploading content? That's the most, maybe the
Yeah,
most
no, but
important thing.
the part I was emphasizing is like the ad revenue on just views, because most creators, the majority of their content comes from like brand deals, sponsorships, etc., and not generally from the Google ads that gets injected in the videos based on the amount of views. So if you're counting on that type of revenue, you'll either have to have consistently millions of views to make it worth your while, uh, and yeah, maybe not millions, but tens of thousands of views to make it at least worth your while.
The people who make actual money from ad revenues, I have to say they're really good. Their videos are good. I don't feel bothered at all to spend 20 minutes watching their
Yeah,
video because they're so damn good. And that takes at least 3 to 5 years. Like, there are shortcuts, especially in certain categories, like especially the comedy kind of stuff. You can go viral easier and you can go grow a little bit quicker. But like in other topics, finance, entrepreneurship, sports, you have to be like really good at your craft. And even then, like you said, Diego, you will often rely on brand deals. And these brand deals can be insane. I've heard stories of $1 million
yeah,
for one YouTube video.
like a few tens of thousands if it's a very niche, specialized topic. But that's also the access. So and that's leveraging the audience you have basically. If you want to start leveraging brand deals.
Yeah, editing. Editing is part of the production. So I think the first part is commitment. The second part is consistency. The third part is the actual edit of the video, and the fourth is the optimization. We haven't talked about optimization enough. It's kind of non-existent in Suriname often because it requires a lot of effort, and you don't immediately see the results. So, like, why spend a day on changing your YouTube video thumbnails if you don't understand the return
Mhm.
of investment of it. But once you do, you'll immediately see that it takes.
Are you still here? I think you just got off. Let me see where he is. Okay, hopefully he gets reconnected in a second. But to answer your questions, yes, do you guys think having a good quality camera can also boost your content a little bit? I would say not as much as you think. I think the first two things that Jean-Luc mentioned on the consistency and the content type play uh, a more important role. But good quality camera is very subjective, not subjective, arbitrary, because it's not just camera. It's about setting the scene, lighting, building a set, and most of that you can already do with your phone. Especially, yeah, I'm not really wanting to say this, but the iPhones and the new Samsungs, like you can do amazing shit with that. So don't focus too much on the equipment, I would say, and focus more on production. Yeah, Shandy Look is coming back in a second. Uh, yeah, and if you're thinking about, so if you look at my camera, for example, and Jean-Luc's setup at the moment, I don't necessarily have a. It's just the lens is the biggest investments to create this, a blurred out effect. But I have a light setup here, like right here. I have a light here and a secondary light here that creates this environment. And I deliberately put backlights in the background to create a sort of like warm mood. So that's the way I'd approach it. If you got a content, that helps. But if you going for a higher production quality, keep in mind it will cost you more time, effort, and energy to set it up. But then you'll also have to set up, be consistent with that. So people expect, because once you start doing that, people will continuously expect that level of quality in delivery, right? So if you're gonna increase production, welcome back.
Yeah, that's we're talking about production quality, and my internet just gave out. Great, and it's funny because I instantly think about my first interview with Chris Brogan, where we discussed the going live topic, and he was just like, if your internet is not good enough to go live, don't go live. And I was like, but wait, and he was like, no, people are they're gonna leave. It's gonna be choppy, and they're gonna be like, ah, I don't want to watch it because people's time is precious. So if it's not good enough, you'll have a cliff. And I think that's something that we do have to take in consideration. This is actually right in some fields of of productions. It's not a fact, but a dozen views in the U.S. could make you around $8, and a dozen views in Suriname can make you $75, but it could also make you $1 cent. I want people to be aware of that it really depends on the type of content and the niche and the
Yeah, not all
category that
views
you're
are
posting in.
rated
Yeah,
equally.
yeah. Unfortunately not. If you're in a field that a lot of people want to advertise in, you're gonna get a lot of revenue. Like the finance guys, the guys that post about crypto and investing and stocks and those kind of things, their ad revenues is insane. It's really insane because everybody that wants to sell their program on how to make money advertises on it.
Hello. Yeah. Oh, I see you moving again. Yeah. What was that? Everybody who wants to sell their program, you got cut off.
Everybody who wants to sell their program on how to make money advertises on YouTube channels that talk about how to make money.
Yeah,
So
basically. That's
so
how you get in.
YouTube channels on how to make money make the most ad revenue.
The
It's a
just
funny cycle. It's a
well,
very
one
funny cycle.
example for what I saw recently. Funny that you mentioned that the finance channels. I think two or three channels that I watched. There was this platform about buying fractional art. So they were pushing the art scene and an easy way to buy art to be part of that as an investment. So yeah, they are diversifying their reach. And they know people are very in a terrible economic situation at the moment. So they are trying everything. But yeah, so tell us quickly about your internet situation, Jean-Luc, and then to not drag it out too
No,
much.
we don't want to talk. No, we don't want to talk about the internet situation. If you can hear me, you can hear me. I don't want a hotspot today, so we're just gonna do it with this connection, and maybe we just should just do an over under,
All right.
overrated, underrated. Yeah.
All right. Let's go with. Okay, I got one. Step counters. Overrated or underrated?
Step counters? Are you talking about actual step counters?
Yeah, so on your phone or the smartwatches that count the steps, is that
Like,
overrated or underrated?
do we need it? What purpose does it serve?
That's what I'm asking you. If you find it overrated or
No,
underrated.
I think it's for the general public. It's overrated.
Okay.
It's not a must-have. It's a nice to have. It's like if you're really conscious about your weight, if you're really conscious about your health, if you're really conscious about setting goals for yourself, then it works. But for the average Joe, nah,
Oh,
I don't think. I don't need. I never knew how many steps I took a day. I rather take a lot of steps during the day and be proactive and not measure it
mhm.
than actually measuring how many steps I make and being disappointed with myself. So if I need that motivation, I rather just say like I'm going to do this every day. So for the month of June, I'm gonna take out my jump rope and I'm just gonna start jumping, and every day I
Gonna
want to
make
get to
TikToks out of
100.
those jumps?
Sorry?
Are you gonna make TikToks out of those jumps as well?
No, absolutely not. I'm not gonna make TikToks out of these jumps. So my question for you, overrated, underrated, is men's mental health.
Men's mental health. I would say mental health in general is underrated. I think it's different factors, but okay, you put an explicit emphasis on men. So I'd say that's even more underrated, especially with how pop culture has been moving to more uh, feminism stuff, and uh, you know, there's this constant tension between that pro female stuff for more women in uh, entrepreneurial positions, for example, but uh, very less emphasis on the mental health part. And I think that society has basically stereotyped, romanticized on that, men generally need to be, uh, yeah, they're more stable, etc. But I think humans in general all share the same spectrum of emotions, pain, etc. So we shouldn't discount it either or. So underrated from the underrated. Yeah.
Okay.
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 On the topic of that, if you don't mind going a bit controversial, pronouns. When people start putting pronouns in their names like the he, she, their, them. Overrated or underrated? You're still on mute, by the way.
I think it's properly rated. I think both sides are like the traditional side is pushing it back because it's like, really, do we need this? And the progressive side is over pushing it because if you don't over push something, we don't talk about it. And I think the discussion to talk about it is actually more important than making laws to have it a certain way. I think laws are very dangerous. Like, if somebody wants a certain pronoun, if you want to respect that person, we should commit to the pronoun. If we don't want to be affiliated with that person, we don't have to engage with them. I think that's you can't force somebody to engage with somebody else. You just can't force that. So it's sometimes I think it goes a little too far. But on the other hand, if you don't go that far, it's just going to be wiped off the table and not going to be discussed. So I think it's actually properly rated.
Okay, cool. Um, Next one for
Okay, so
you.
yeah, algorithmic stablecoins.
Didn't we already do this?
Yeah, but I'm actually searching for something else because there was a very interesting thread by Vitalik um, earlier this week where they discussed NFTs that weren't tradable. Did you get that part?
Soulbound NFTs, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, soulbound NFTs. So
So
okay, let's take soulbound NFTs instead of maybe you have to first explain what soulbound NFTs are.
yeah, I read the blog post that Vitalik shared, and the idea basically is, well, he explained it nicely with if you're familiar with gaming and WoW, World of Warcraft, for example, Final Fantasy, for example, when you get an item, you can trade it. But the moment you equip or use it, it's bound to your character or your soul. So you can't trade it anymore. And that becomes part of your identity. And I think there's use cases for soulbound NFTs. I think POAPs, for example,
Ca-
would,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah, yeah.
Can you compare this to a digital form of getting a tattoo?
That's one way you could put it, yeah. Granted, you can't remove tattoos from the old days, but it's kind of bound to you, and to no one else. You can't exchange it, you can't trade it. It's more like a proof of, yeah, that belongs to you. and you can already see where the issue is going to be in security and compromising wallets, etc. But that's a side topic. But I think there's a use case for soulbound NFTs. How deep it is yet to be explored. So at this moment, I would put it properly rated because the conversation is there around it. But I haven't seen too much pros or cons around it yet.
Question.
But
Question.
yes.
Why would somebody steal your bachelor or master's degree? How would they benefit from it? So that's the same thing with soulbound NFTs. If it's something that's registered under your name and you can't change it, what's the reason for stealing it? I just or hacking it. I just don't. I can't grasp that. But that's from a personal perspective, of course.
Yeah, no, that is a fair point, but also a good use case, yeah, for certifications. You can make them soulbound, and yeah, why would someone compromise you just to be mean?
Yeah, I mean, I quickly want to jump on the thing that Sharon is saying. Well, yeah, so a lot of Surinamese people don't want to be on camera, but then again, a lot of Surinamese people do want to be on camera. You just have to decide if the topic that you want to discuss is something that they feel comfortable with. If they feel comfortable with it, trust me, they will get on camera. If they're uncomfortable, they won't. And secondly, it starts with you being open to being on camera because I think that's also a very difficult factor. A lot of people don't want to be on cam themselves, and if you already have kind of that tendency to not want it, getting others to do it can be quite difficult because they can read off you as well. So I think that's important, and that's something that I saw today. Like the energy that you give while being in front of a camera with others around decides whether or not they're motivated or interested to interact with you as well. And having done 4 interviews today and 4 lives this weekend, I can say that like most people were even like saying like, "Hey, I want to talk about this." For instance, Real Madrid Champions League final, people actively want to talk about that. They have an opinion, so it's really easy to make content in that situation, especially if you're with a couple of hundred people watching the match together. It's easy to find people that want to talk, but you have to do a little bit of scouting as well, and you do have to get a little bit of people knowledge. Whereas I would get into situations more often. I'm not saying that I don't get into those situations anymore, but when I started interviewing people, I would get into more situations where I didn't properly read the person beforehand, and I was self missing a little bit of self confidence, which made people like, oh, I don't want to be interviewed. Whereas if you're confident and you've scouted beforehand and you've had contact, you're already kind of on their reaction. You can see if they're infighting or they're just like, no, I don't want to. If they move their head, don't go and try to interview them. If they walk eye contact with you, you can just walk straight up to them and ask them a question. And these are kind of like pointers that you get back to.
Yeah, it's a
And
skill you'll develop over.
yeah, but getting back to the consistency, if you consistently do it over time, you will get better. I'm not saying you will be a star in it because people who have talent will be able to do it easier than you, but you will develop that skill of knowing like who you can approach and who you can't approach for this. And I think that's for me the scary part is reaching out to guests as well. I'm not still not comfortable with reaching out to guests for programs. There's kind of like this threshold for me that I still have to get over, and I'm very much aware of that.
Yeah, that's you and me both. But okay, one last one before we close it up from me. Hmm. Let's see. Okay, I got a fun one to close it up. Souvenirs, overrated or underrated?
Properly rated. I have certain souvenirs that I'm like, I wonder why I kept this. And I have some souvenirs that are really like, I'm happy that I have a memory of this. or something that went bad. Like a lot of things from my China trip. I was in China in 2004,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to throw away a lot of things from that trip. Uh, uh, um, a cool poster that evaporated over time. Yeah, like this beautiful. It was a beautiful Chinese scroll, but I should have put a layer of protection over it or something. It was
The
really
way you
this.
said it, like it
Yeah,
just
it's like it started like dissolving at a certain point, and I didn't know how to protect it. So these are kind of things that I'm like, yeah, I really miss that souvenir. That's something that I value a lot. But I have way too much stuff. You don't want to know my office and the things that are surrounding me right now. It's yeah, it looks really clean on camera, but you have no idea what's below the surface all around here. Like no,
okay. That's fair point. We should do a show and tell one of these
no,
days.
I've
Like,
done that. You can. I'll pull up the YouTube video. I have done that video. I don't want to ever do that again.
all right, all right.
Um, um,
Okay, one more for you, and then we can wrap it
yeah, I
up.
want to know whether or not you think flogging is overrated or underrated.
Mm, vlogging in 2022, I would lean towards a bit underrated in 2022. I'd say maybe 2 to 3 years ago, pre 2020, a bit overrated. But I would say now it's a bit more underrated because, as you mentioned, lots of social media content has gone more high production, and that personal touch with creators, uh, showing their, yeah, I guess,
Oh,
life, but their process has been kind of lost a bit. So uh
we miss Casey
so
Neistat's
the vlogging as it was,
videos.
like, 5-6 years ago, that magic, the, for that reason I would place it in the underrated
Yeah,
pile at the moment.
yeah, I agree. So to connect that to this comment by Sharon, um, here's the thing about flogging, especially flogging. Um, it really depends on the group you're with. The only time that I actually really loved flogging, like really enjoyed it, was in Panama because we were a group with 6 people that were all constantly flogging. Then it's fun. Then it's something that you want to do. You get kind of hyped up and motivated by others to heavily interact in it. Whereas if you're going to do it by yourself, it's there are people, and I really respect those people. But even I today, I wanted to vlog a little bit and say like, "Hey, we're here in Asset Stadium. We're gonna be looking at the training of the national men's team for Suriname, and afterwards, we're gonna ask some questions." I couldn't get that out of me. I know for a fact that if there was a camera person standing down and recording me, I would be able to get over that hump. Whereas while I was holding the camera myself and trying to talk in the camera, I wasn't able to. For somebody who's actually vlogged, that's really weird to say something like that, but it really helps if you have supportive people around you. I think it's one of the most underestimated things. I think it's also a misconception. Like there are cases like Casey Neistat that are like complete solo creators, but like a lot of creators work with a complete team. Sek King, for instance, he talks about we. Sek King is a brand on its own. It's like a company. It's not one person. And I think that's a very interesting approach if you really want to do it. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary Vee is a brand. It's not just Gary Vaynerchuk. It's a complete production team that does everything from creating, editing to distribution. It's insane how much time and effort goes into that. And I think people look at it and are like, okay, I want to do that, but they have no
Yeah,
idea or
the
notion
amount of
how many
commitment.
people are involved in that process. We're talking about a team of 10 people in some cases. And we want to do that by ourselves. And that's why it just doesn't work because in the end you break down because you're not able to keep up.
I'd say it is doable by yourself, but you gotta know what you're getting yourself into, and if you really want to do that.
The only time I consistently vlogged for 30 days was when I had one child and I would edit the videos between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning every day. That's possible. But when you have two children and you have duties of bringing them to school, reading them stories to go to bed, and you have all these other things going on in your life, um, committing to that on a daily basis, it gets. I can't imagine. I actually have to do it for the writing, the book writing, but I won't be able to do it at night anymore. I just don't have the energy to do that. Whereas if you're like 25 and you have no commitments, you can definitely commit to it. And that's why we're seeing a lot of young creators and young entrepreneurs that don't have the hassles of daily life that can really accelerate in this. And that's something that people underestimate as well.
Yep, make the use of your youth and lack of responsibilities, for a
Yeah.
lack of a better word.
But you have to know that when you're younger, you have more time, but you also have less experience on knowing what works and what doesn't. So that also happens. And I'm not going too deep into the sports stuff, but I think Boston Celtics is definitely underrated. Um, they beat out three teams that were in the conference finals for the last 3 years, or the no, actually the best from the East for the past 3 years. They beat all three teams. They are also considered the three best teams in the East, aside from Boston. And even if they lose this finals, I still feel they're underrated. And if they win the finals, they're heavily, heavily, heavily underrated.
With that, we will look forward to if they're gonna win or not. When's the finals, Jean-Luc?
It starts on Thursday. Yeah,
Okay,
best of
then
seven starting on Thursday.
we'll see you in a month or so. What the results gonna be?
Definitely. I
Awesome.
think we can close it off with that. Next week, we might have a special guest, or we might not have a special guest. And I think I want to keep it at that. Diego.
Yeah, be sure to tune in for episode 69 next week. And with that, episodes as usual will be released on the weekends. This was Social Convo. See you next time.
Goodbye.